The class begins. Professor Brawl was known across 3-star systems as one of the most brilliant alien historians. With 6 long limbs, a blue-scaled body, and eyes that glowed faint yellow, he commanded attention the moment he entered a room. Today, his lecture hall on planet Elion was packed with students from over a dozen species. The course? Extinct and mythical species of the galaxy. As the lights dimmed, a giant holoscreen lit up behind him, showing drawings and simulations of creatures believed to be myths. Beasts with wings, giant machines, and long-lost beings once thought to be warlords. He chuckled as he tapped the next image. And now, Brawl said, his voice deep and confident, we reach the strangest tale of them all, humans. A ripple of laughter passed through the hall. The screen showed primitive spacesuits, ancient Earth buildings, and a rough image of a biped with small eyes and soft skin. According to old Alliance archives, humans were supposed to be a warlike species, emotional and reckless. They vanished from records over 500 cycles ago. Most scholars agree, they never existed. It's just old war propaganda. At the back of the room, a student raised a hand. She was small, wrapped in a dark cloak. But what if the stories are true? She asked. Brawl's mandibles clicked. My dear, if humans were real, we'd have seen them by now. And if they were so powerful, why would they hide? Another student, a reptilian creature named Varn, leaned forward. Professor, didn't the old council logs say humans could breathe multiple atmospheres, survive in deep space for minutes, and learn alien tech in hours? Brow laughed harder this time. Yes, and some logs say they could punch through steel. It's nonsense. The galaxy loves a good ghost story. Suddenly, the lecture hall lights flickered. A low hum filled the room. Then the door opened. Everyone turned. 2 figures walked in. One was tall, wearing a dark combat suit with a faint glowing logo on the chest. The other was smaller, dressed in a loose jacket and dark pants. Their eyes scanned the room slowly. Calmly, Brawl blinked. Excuse me, this is a private class. The taller figure nodded. We're here to observe. Observe? Brawl's voice cracked slightly. Who gave you permission? This is a secure university zone. The smaller figure spoke. We heard you were teaching about humans. Then he smiled. Thought we'd sit in. The entire room fell silent. Barn narrowed his eyes. What species are you? The taller one stepped forward and spoke softly, but the voice echoed with unnatural clarity. Human. Gasps echoed through the room. Brawl dropped his holopad. The holoscreen flickered. Impossible, Brawl muttered. You're extinct. You're not real. The one in the jacket walked toward the front. He stopped beside the ancient image of a human soldier on the screen. You're not the first to say that. He tapped the screen. It zoomed in on the soldier. The armor matched his. Professor Brawl stumbled back. His limbs shook. This is a joke, some kind of illusion. The human turned to face the class. We were never myths, just watching. And with that, he sat down calmly in the front row, legs crossed. The room didn't move. No one dared breathe. For the first time in his life, Brawl couldn't find a single word. He looked at his notes, then at the 2 humans. His worst day had just begun. Questions. No one dared ask. Professor Brawl's hands twitched as he tried to adjust his hollow notes, but the interface kept fading in and out. It was as if the presence of these humans interfered with the very energy of the room. Or perhaps it was just his nerves. The smaller human, still seated in the front row, leaned back casually. He looked young, maybe early adulthood by alien standards. His eyes scanned the class like a teacher evaluating students. His companion, taller and clearly more battle-worn, stood silently at the door like a sentry. Brawl cleared his throat. You say you're human, but how do we know? Anyone can wear old armor or learn a few words. The young human raised an eyebrow. You want proof? The students held their breath. The tall human pulled something from his belt, a small, smooth device. When he activated it, a projection lit up in midair. It was Earth, real Earth, Not a simulation, not a textbook rendering. There were trees, oceans, cities, alive and thriving. A strange silence fell over the room. "We still exist," the young human said. "We just stopped talking." "Why?" asked a student near the back, her voice small. "We watched how the galaxy worked," he replied. "Wars, empires, species rising and falling. And we decided to step away, to prepare for when we'd be needed." Brawl shook his head. "That's absurd. You expect us to believe that humans, after disappearing from the records for over 5 centuries, just waited? For what?" The young man's smile faded. "For moments like this, when the truth matters more than the fear." One of the students, a beetle-like creature named Ola, tilted her head. "But the stories say humans were dangerous, wild, even cruel." The tall human finally spoke. His voice was deep and calm. "We were all of those things, and more. But we were never mindless. We fought to survive. We loved fiercely. And when we lost our own, we didn't break. We built." Brawl tried to stand firm. "You claim too much. If your people are so advanced, why not join the council? Why not help us?" The young one leaned forward. "Because your council erased us, lied about us, called us a myth. Would you trust someone who rewrote your history?" The words hit hard. Ola raised her hand. "So, why come now?" The human looked around. "Because you're close to repeating the same mistake. You're building weapons you don't understand, creating alliances built on fear. We've seen this before." "And what will you do?" Brawl asked. "Lecture us like I do?" The tall one stepped forward. "Warn you. That's all." "But if we don't listen?" Varn asked, almost whispering. The young human turned his gaze directly at Brawl. "Then you'll see why humans became myths, and why we were never forgotten." The silence in the hall thickened. Even the ambient sounds of the university, the hums and distant lectures, felt far away. Brawl looked down at his lecture notes. Pages and pages on how humans were a joke. A fantasy. Now they were sitting right in front of him, and worse, his students were listening. One by one, claws, tentacles, paws, and hooves raised into the air. The class had questions, real questions. And for once, Professor Brawl had none of the answers. The shift in silence. Professor Brawl stood frozen at his lectern, watching as the balance of control slowly slipped from his grip. For years, his voice had shaped minds, his words accepted as fact. Now, with 2 silent humans sitting calmly before him, everything he taught was being questioned, not by him but by his students. A student near the front, a soft-voiced avian named Lyra, spoke. "You said humans once ruled entire sectors. If that's true, where is your empire now?" The young human tilted his head. "Empires fall. Ideas last longer." "What ideas?" Varn asked, clearly skeptical. The human smiled faintly. "Freedom. Curiosity. Persistence. Not domination." Ola, still fidgeting with her data tablet, looked up. "Then why did your kind vanish?" The taller human, silent for most of the time, finally stepped forward. "We left because we could. We saw the path this galaxy was taking: control, fear, isolation. We didn't want to become part of that, so we built somewhere else." "Where?" someone whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, the younger one stood. "We learned to stay out of sight. We lived in the voids between charts, places even your best scanners couldn't reach, and we watched." Brawl clenched his fingers. "Watched what? Civilizations fall? Species suffer? What kind of beings would do nothing while the galaxy burned?" The human's tone grew quiet. "We did help. Quietly, when we could, without showing our faces. Because every time we were seen, war followed. Not by us, but by those who feared us." "Because you are dangerous," Brawl snapped. "No," the human replied gently. "Because we remind others of what they could be, and what they aren't." The students murmured, shifting uncomfortably. Some looked at their data pads, others at each other. Brawl could see it in their eyes. They weren't laughing at the human myths anymore. They called you a fool, Ola said to the professor softly. Said you believed in fairy tales. And now? Brawl stepped away from his podium. I don't know what this is, some political trick, some technology-based illusion, but I will report this. The young human nodded. You should. Varn asked. What if the council silences you, Professor, like they did the records of humans? Brawl froze. He hadn't thought of that. They won't, he said, but the words came out hollow. The taller human looked toward the exit. We didn't come to argue or threaten, just to correct history. And what happens now? Lyra asked. The younger human looked over his shoulder. That depends on what your professor chooses to teach tomorrow. With that, both turned toward the door. Wait, Brawl said, unable to stop himself. Why me? Why this class? The younger human paused. Because you laughed. And then they walked out. The doors hissed shut behind them, leaving behind a silence more powerful than any argument. The students looked at Brawl, some disappointed, some thoughtful, some afraid. And in that moment, the professor realized the galaxy had changed, starting right inside his classroom. After they left, the classroom sat in stunned silence long after the two humans were gone. Brawl leaned against his podium, no longer the confident speaker he had been at the start of the lecture. He looked at his students. They weren't just listening anymore. They were thinking, questioning, and that scared him more than anything. Varn was the first to break the silence. That was real, wasn't it? Not a trick? No one answered. Alla scrolled through her notes. I recorded them. I ran a scan, no holograms, no illusions, no distortion fields, they were real. Two humans, Lyra whispered. In this classroom. After we were told for generations that they never existed. Brawl's voice was shaky. It doesn't make sense. We've scanned the entire galaxy. If humans were out there, we'd know. But we didn't know, Alla replied. That's the point. Maybe we weren't meant to. One of the quieter students, a moss-covered being from the Glyph sector, spoke up for the first time. If they were hiding all this time, maybe they saw something in us they didn't trust. The words hit Brawl like a punch. What if it was true? What if humanity had hidden because it knew what the rest of the galaxy was capable of? Brawl looked back at the screen, where the image of a human soldier still hovered. He stared at it. Not just a figure from old archives now, but a real being who had just stood in his classroom and looked him in the eye. I've taught this course for 20 cycles, Brawl muttered. I've mocked humans every year, called them fairy tales, foolish inventions. Varn nodded. So did every university. The silence turned heavy again. Brawl sat down in his chair, the first time he'd ever done so during a class. Maybe we've been wrong, he said, almost whispering. About more than just humans. About how we treat the past. About what kind of truth we choose to believe. Lyra stood. Professor, what happens now? He looked up at her, unsure how to answer. Do we keep teaching the old lies? She asked. Or do we tell others what really happened today? Brawl looked around the room. If we do that, if we admit humans exist, and that the council erased them, we're risking everything. Our positions, our reputations, maybe even our lives. But, Ola said softly, if we stay silent, then we're just part of the lie. For a long moment, Brawl didn't say a word. Then he stood taller than before and walked to the holoscreen. He deleted the image of the mocked human soldier, then uploaded the classroom recording from Ola's device. The two humans, walking in, speaking, warning, leaving. I will send this to every historian I know, he said firmly. And if they try to silence me, I'll keep speaking anyway. The students watched, a quiet sense of respect building. The myth had walked into their class. Now the truth was walking out with them. The first response 2 days had passed since the humans appeared. Professor Brawl's message had spread farther than he ever imagined. Every historian, scholar, and academy on planet Elion had seen the footage. Some dismissed it immediately, others demanded a deeper analysis, and a few, just a few, believed it. But the most terrifying reaction came from the Central Galactic. Council Brawl sat alone in his university quarters, staring at the encrypted message on his holo terminal. Professor Brawl, your recent lecture footage has violated Article 92 of Academic Stability Law. You are ordered to report to the Council. Assembly in 3 rotations. Further distribution of this footage will be considered an act of historical destabilization. Office of Galactic Oversight. He leaned back, mandibles tightening. So it's true, he whispered. They did bury the humans. A knock echoed at his door. It was Ola. They're here, she said. Brawl followed her down the hall and into the lecture chamber. This time it was packed beyond capacity. Students sat on stairs, on the floor, even outside the doors. The university's board had banned him from speaking, but he wasn't teaching today. He was listening. At the front of the hall stood Varn, Lyra, and 2 other students. They weren't just students anymore. They were seekers of truth. Lyra pointed to the holoscreen. What the council calls a myth walked into this room. Varn added, we have the right to question what we're told, to ask who benefits, from silence. They played the clip again, this time with close-ups, enhanced audio, and translated subtitles. The crowd watched with wide eyes, some in disbelief, some in awe. Then a voice from the back spoke. You're all being reckless. If humans truly exist, the council erased them for a reason. Maybe to protect us. It was a visiting scholar. Older, respected. Lyra faced him. Maybe. Or maybe they erased them because humans saw what the council didn't want anyone else to see. And what is that? Fear, she said. Not of humans, but of change. The crowd stirred. Brawl stood at the edge of the room, unnoticed, listening as his students took his place. He wasn't angry. He was proud. Then something unexpected happened. The lights flickered again. Gasps filled the air. Everyone turned to the entrance. 2 figures walked in, the same humans, but this time they weren't alone. A 3rd figure followed, a woman, pale skin, piercing eyes, dressed in a long coat with the Earth insignia subtly stitched onto her sleeve. The ID. Younger man smiled and said, we heard the galaxy still had questions. The room held its breath. Brawl stepped forward slowly. Why come back? The woman answered. Because you didn't run. She turned to the students. Because someone finally listened. The human truth. The silence in the lecture hall felt thicker than space itself. All eyes were on the woman. She stood calmly, hands behind her back, her eyes scanning the sea of stunned students. The other 2 humans flanked her, silent but alert. Professor Brawl took a slow step forward. Who are you? She met his gaze. Commander Ray, Earth Preservation Division. We don't usually step into council affairs, but you've started something. Brawl swallowed. Why now? Ray stepped closer to the podium and tapped the side of it. The holoscreen changed, no longer just a recording, but a live transmission. What appeared was astonishing. A city, not on Elion, not in any known system. Earth, not destroyed, not abandoned, thriving. Vast towers rising from forests, oceans glittering with solar platforms, ships hovering without sound, people, humans, walking freely. We never vanished, Ray said. We evolved, quietly, out of sight. A student in the front row stammered, why hide for so long? Ray's eyes narrowed slightly. Because every time we reached out we were hunted, lied about, feared, so we watched, learned, waited. Waited for what? Varn asked. She turned toward the crowd, for someone to tell the truth. That moment came here, in this room. Brawl felt something shift deep inside him. The council. They'll call this treason. Ray gave a small smile. They already have. The tall human by her side tapped his wrist. A small holomap appeared, showing multiple red dots blinking rapidly. Council security, he said calmly. On their way. Gasps filled the room. Allah's datapad lit up with emergency alerts. Professor, they've locked the university down. Brawl clenched his jaw. They want to silence this before it spreads. Then help it spread, Ray said. You don't have to fight, just speak. Lyra turned to the screen. Can we talk to them, she asked. To more humans? Ray nodded. We've opened a relay channel, secure. Anyone who wants to know the truth, who wants to break the silence, can reach us. The younger human stepped forward. We're not here to conquer, or to lead. We're just done hiding. He looked directly at Brawl. You opened the door. Now it's up to you if it stays open. The doors to the hall suddenly hissed open again. Armed guards in black council armor poured in. Everyone stood. Professor Brawl looked back at his students, then at the humans. Then he turned to the guards. With a calm, firm voice, he said, This is a class on history, and today we're writing a new chapter. The lesson that changed the galaxy. The guards stood at the entrance, weapons lowered but ready. Their leader, a gray-skinned council enforcer, stepped forward. Professor Brawl, he announced, you are ordered to cease all transmissions and surrender your data sources. The topic of humans is under restricted status. Brawl stood tall, facing him without a tremble. Is history restricted too, or just the parts you can't control? A tense silence followed. The students looked from the professor to the enforcers, then to the humans still standing calmly at the front of the hall. Commander Ray stepped forward but didn't raise her voice. You can take the recordings, shut down the network, but you can't erase what they've seen. The enforcer turned to her. You're not recognized by the council. Neither was truth, she replied. Suddenly, a new sound filled the yow, drum, soft beeps from dozens of datapads. Across the university, students, staff, and scholars had received the same message. The humans are real. The myths were lies. Watch and decide for yourself. Brawl smiled faintly. You're too late. One of the younger guards hesitated. He looked at the footage playing behind Brawl, then at his own pad. His hands slowly lowered his weapon. The lead enforcer's voice tightened. Stand down, soldier. I didn't sign up to silence the truth, the guard muttered, stepping back. The ripple spread quickly. The council forces didn't fire. They didn't arrest anyone. They simply turned and left, one by one. And just like that, the truth stayed alive. A week later, news of the humans spread like wildfire. Some still denied it. Others embraced it. Protests broke out across planets demanding the council declassify the archives. Millions tuned into the transmission recorded in Brawl's classroom. Brawl himself was no longer just a professor. He was a symbol, not of rebellion, but of revelation. He now taught a new course. Human history, from myth to memory. The classroom was always full, and once a week a guest arrived quietly, never announced, either Ray or the younger human, sometimes both. They never stayed long, just enough to remind everyone the humans were watching, not to control, not to rule, but to make sure the truth never got buried again.